Alright, and then we're going to go through numbers 7 through 10 real quick just so we can get our multiplication and division down. And then you should be pretty good to do the backside of this. So with number 7, we have negative 11p equals negative 22. Now with multiplication and division, it's a little bit harder once you get started because we don't see a plus or a minus sign that tells us immediately what operation we're doing. Here, negative 11p can be rewritten as negative 11 times p equals negative 22. The reason why we don't have to put this times here is because we call 11 a coefficient. Coefficient. And a coefficient is literally just the number in front of a variable. So p represents some quantity, and we're multiplying that quantity times negative 11 to give us negative 22. Right? So if we're multiplying here, and we're trying to identify what our inverse operation will be, you just ask yourself, well, what's the opposite of multiplying? And that is dividing, right? So we'll divide this side by negative 11. And just like before, we have to keep our equation balanced. So let's divide the right side by negative 11 as well. I just like to draw a fraction line right under it and then put the number. You could completely rewrite it, but it saves you a step doing it this way. Negative 11 divided by negative 11, if we wrote that as a fraction without that p in there, well, that's just equal to 1, right? Anything over itself is equal to 1. So that's how we can cancel those out, giving us p all alone. Technically, it's 1p, right? But we don't have to put 1 as a coefficient because it's implied. And then negative 22 divided by negative 11. A negative over a negative cancels out, so we know our answer will be positive. And then 11 goes into 22 how many times? Well, just 2. So our answer is p equals 2. And if we plugged 2 back in for p, right? If we took this p out and plugged in a 2, what's 2 times negative 11? Well, that's going to give you negative 22, right? Perfect. Let's go on to number 8 here. Now we're doing some division now, right? We got x over 4 is equal to negative 8. So we know that we're dividing here because our variable's stuck in a fraction, right? So the inverse operation of division, just like we saw in number 7, would be multiplication. So we're going to multiply, I'll rewrite it down here. We're going to multiply both sides of our equation by 4. Times 4 on the left and times 4 on the right. And I always draw a vertical line through my equal sign just so I can make sure I'm performing my operation on both sides of the equal sign and I'm not accidentally doing it on the same side. You may be like, how would I ever do it on the same side? Once we get into more complicated equations, it's definitely possible. So get in the habit now while we got the easy work to draw that line through the equal sign, okay? All right. When we multiply x over 4 by 4, what's going to happen? We can cancel out the 4's. Well, why is that? Think about, let's just say, for example, right, a little sidetrack here. Let's say that x is equal to 1, right? So if we plug in 1 for x here, we'll get this purple value will be 1 over 4, or 1/4. Think of it like a pizza, right, in elementary school, or a pie. If you have 1/4 of a pizza and you multiply that by 4, now you have a whole pizza, right? If you and 4 friends each take a quarter of that pizza, it's whole. So if we multiply x over 4 by 4, we're essentially fulfilling that fraction, making it whole, allowing us to cancel those 4's out, leaving us with just x all alone on the right, which means all we have to do is multiply 4 times negative 8. Well, we know that 4 times 8 is 32, and a positive times a negative is always going to equal a negative. And again, if we wanted to plug this back in for x to check our work, we could write negative 8 equals negative 32 over 4. And we know that 32 over 4 is equal to 8, so that checks out. And we also know that a negative number divided by a positive number is going to give us a negative answer. So while we're talking about division, let's start with number 10. Then we'll jump back over to number 9. So with number 10, again, our variable's trapped inside that fraction. We know that we're currently using division, so our inverse operation is going to be multiplication. We'll multiply this side by 5. Again, we want to make this fraction whole so we can cancel that denominator out. And we'll multiply the left by 5 as well. 5's cancel. X is all alone. 5 times 3 gives us 15. Not too bad, right? 15 over 5 would simplify to 3, so we know that our answer is correct. All right, number 9 is going to be the last one we talk about. We got negative 2x equals negative 38. Again, always start by asking yourself, what operation are we currently performing on our variable? Negative 2x would be multiplication, so it looks like we're going to have to divide both sides by negative 2. Negative 2 over negative 2 cancels out to 1, nice and even. And now we're left with x equals negative 38 over negative 2. Well, 38 divided by 2, that's kind of tricky to do in our heads, maybe for some of us. Let's try long division, see if we can get this figured out. And I know you're probably thinking, well, why can't I just use a calculator? It's fine to use a calculator when you're checking your homework, but you're not going to be allowed to have a calculator during a test. So it's best really to hone those multiplication and long division skills now, so that once you may have to divide 2 into 38 on a test, now you know how to do it without a calculator. 2 goes into 3 once. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract those down. 3 minus 2 is 1. Bring that 8 down. And 2 goes into 18 9 times. 9 times 2 is 18. Subtract down again, and we get 0 remainder, which is what we want. A nice even answer of x equals 19. Well, why wouldn't it be x equals negative 19, Mr. Church? Great question. Because a negative divided by a negative, as we know, gives us a positive result. All right, just like with the previous video, if you have questions on this still after watching this, please make sure to let me know one-on-one in class so I can make sure you get the help that you need. Thanks for watching.